All right. Well, hopefully we're live here. I think we are. But anyway, you're at Folk You Zeus. I'm Mark Zeus, your perennial, continual host here. Um, I got a subject today. I'm going to address just a one-word subject: truth. Okay, we're going to discuss that a little bit, and we're going to delve into some definitions. I'm kind of a definition kind of guy. It's like language. There was a time once heard. This was years back. Famous actors. Some of you might remember James Earl Jones. He was a real husky baritone kind of speaker, and he did a lot of commercials, and he had movies. So that's what he did, like real, you know, low voice kind of thing. He got that great voice. But anyway, but he there was an interview, and he once came up with something that stuck in my head. Is that he said that language binds culture. Language binds culture. Uh, which, if you think about it, that is a truth, and it's a subjective truth, and one of the things we're going to talk about, and even that those statements like that. But it's something to think about. That when you're with people when you're with people of that speak your own language, you feel that bind, and you feel the culture develops from people that speak the same language. Doesn't mean that you can't interact with people that don't speak your language, but that is a contributing factor to the effectiveness of your communication with groups and individuals. And and that's one thing that kind of leads to my next point. I came up with one that kind of answers that. It's like language uh, binds truth. Okay, language also binds truth. So we have to be able to share the same language to understand the same truths. And the word truth in itself is definable. And we're going to take a look at the definition of that. And as usual, I'll go to Lady Google and see what she has to say. And hopefully, there's not a movie called Truth or something it'll come out and spit out some stuff about that. But we'll see. We'll see what she says. The definition of truth.
Here's the definition of truth: the quality or state of being true.
Okay, man, she's so smart. So anyway, well, okay, yeah, that doesn't tell us a whole lot, does it? But lots of times Google doesn't tell you a lot. They'll kind of beat around the bush quite a bit. Um, won't get too deeply into politics. It might enter a little bit here and there, but I mean, it's just I think everybody in the world, everybody in the universe, in my opinion, wants to know the truth. I mean, sometimes you can't handle the truth. Um, the truth might make you angry. Truth might make you sick. Truth might make you sad. Sometimes you don't want to know the truth, but I think in the end, I think if everybody evaluates it, they do want the truth. And since this program is about art, culture, music, and all the related arts, and if there's anything that binds those arts too is our constant pursuit of truth. And I'll get into that a little bit later as opposed to how it applies to the arts. But first, I want to go into the concept of truth so we understand what I'm trying to talk about here and discuss with you. And if anybody is out there, I don't think. Let me take a look here. Nobody out there. Okay, that's fine. Just trying. I'm doing this live, but I understand. It's been a heck of a week for me. I've had some vehicle issues. We had a very inspiring and somewhat emotional gig on Friday with my friend Kristen Jensen, who is leaving town, who is moving away to the far corner of the U.S. in the northwest Washington State. So we had our final gig on Friday. I had a pretty good gig late yesterday at another place, and so it's Sunday here, and I'm dealing with having to make sure my vehicle is running, and so I'm working on either having to replace it or fix it or something. So life gets real, and that is the truth. and we're going to discuss it now. Okay, I've got two general categories that we're going to talk about in regards to truth. There is objective truth and there is subjective truth. It's the usual dichotomy of objective versus subjective. Objective, concrete, subjective, opinion, uh, finding, and when you have a subjective, I put down here sought through theory, logic, and or supposition, where there's something you have an idea that said this is what I believe is true or could be true. So we'll talk. But first, I want to talk about objective truth because that's a little more concrete. It's something that we can define. Um, I used to teach a unit in high school about truth and facts because obviously they go together. So if you're looking for the truth, you need to find the facts. You need to understand the facts and to define what a fact is. We'll see what Lady Google says on that, and be interesting. Okay, the truth was a little weird. Definition of fact.
Here's the definition of fact: a thing that is known or proved to be true.
No, okay, that's like a little sideways kind of thing, little circular logic there. So yeah, something that's known to be true. Now, what is true? Well, if it's a fact, it's true. So that's the way it goes. And we're just turning around in circles here, and that's why it's I think it's important for people to keep discussing the parameters in which you set your beliefs and of what is truth and what is fact. As I taught that unit and stuff that you study this, it's something that you could kind of grasp ideas that are out there. That the most valid fact, the most valid fact is one that is personally verifiable. So your objective truth supported by real facts, and your real facts, the best facts are personally verifiable, meaning you saw it, you were there when it happened. So if it's an event, you were there, you saw a thing. Now you might not know everything that happened, so you don't know the truth about everything, but you know that event happened. Certain truths within that structure that's personally verifiable. You've seen that your friend's car is blue. That's a fact. You've seen the car. You know that he owns it. Maybe you didn't see the title. Maybe his neighbor owns it. So maybe that language barrier that's different. It's like, okay, I know that the car that he just drove is blue. Is it his car? And so when it comes to having real hardcore facts, you say, well, yeah, that is his car. I remember it was blue. It was that kind of car, and he was driving it. Well, maybe he didn't own it. He stole it. Anyway, so but personally verifiable, whatever it is, in an event, a situation, whatever, you've seen it. It was with your own eyes, heard it with your own ears. That's the best. And then sometimes you get fooled, as we said in previous podcasts. I've alluded to that. But anyway, the next best is verified by a trusted source. Now we're coming in with more terminology, and I'm not even going to go to Lady Google for that, because this gets to be where it's objectively true if it's a highly, and this is true for you because we could talk about collective truths, between all of us, what we all believe as being true. There is religious truth and like political truths that they're put upon us. But this is, if you are evaluating a piece of information or a situation or an event, talking about it and stuff like that, this is a good way. And I've seen people organize it this way, and it made sense to me. So just something that, if you're interested, look into it further. But the next, verified by a trusted source. Not trusted. It's it's somebody I grew up with, my father or whatever. It's Father's Day today. My dad passed many years ago, but I mean that just in general, that honor thy father in his opinion. Most family units trust somebody in your family or your brother, your sister, whatever. That they're going to not want to lead you astray unless it's some kind of a crazy little thing that they joke they want to play in or whatever, or if they're the dysfunctional family. But in general, a good solid family member, best friend if you had for a long time, you can really count on that person. So if that person says something, and then you can say, okay, that trusted source, you know, uh, and that could go beyond your individual circle of friends. It might be a journalist that you followed for 20, 30 years. You know a lot about that person. You know about the biography. That this person has been like a Walter Cronkite. Everybody would say is the most trusted man in the news back in the day. Some of you younger folks might not remember who that is. You can look him up, Walter Cronkite. Whatever. But he's still he was still in a position of being a mouthpiece for an established view, for what I mean. So he had editors that were writing him stuff, and he was kind of counting on them, and you kind of hope that he would go through stuff and not be the one to lie to you. So I'm just saying, now it gets to be shaky because you really don't know what his job and what his influences are. But in general, you want to, somebody that in whatever vein it is, it would be a trusted source. Okay, and then next one is expert source. Maybe somebody you don't know, but somebody is introduced to you as being an expert. Doctor's got a diploma on the wall. You walk into a doctor's office, and you're going to believe everything that doctor is telling you. Is he influenced by anything? Is there some reason that you shouldn't be trusting that expert source? Is there a reason to get another opinion if you're in that kind of situation? Uh, in my life, I would say if I walk in, I don't know somebody, and they're not a trusted family member, trusted friend. They're not somebody I followed for a long time. I know their biography. I know what other decisions they made along the way. Walk in, the doctor, I'll meet the guy for the first time. I'm not going to hand over my my health, 100%. Say I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'll just whatever it is. Sometimes you're in a life and death situation. You got to do that. I was in a life and death situation with my heart. I had heart surgery. This is about a year and a half ago. Anyway, but I got to the point where I finally went into. I'm the kind of person who doesn't go to doctor. Doesn't hates being around those places. You got to do it when you got to do it. But man, I was feeling bad, and it was like it got to a point to where it's like, I needed to go in. I finally went in to the emergency room, and whoever was there, I was ready to even walk away because of the insurance garbage and that. And like I said, I don't want to get too much into politics, but our healthcare system does suck. Works for some people, for most, it doesn't work very well. So, but anyway, I digress. Moving into a situation where I had to hand over. I had to trust people that I don't know at all. So. And then I met people. You try to talk to them a little bit, find out a little bit about, and I tried to get some second opinions. But when it came down to, hey, save my life, give it a shot. So, and they did. So they did it. Overall, I think they did a good job. I have complaints about various things in that whole sequence, but I won't go into that. But anyway, it's trusting an expert's source. There's a reason. If you have time to be able to step back and not have to trust somebody 100% just because somebody is claiming to be or has been told you of being, excuse me, expert. All right, you want to look back, maybe get another expert opinion. Look and look around a little bit and get it from different sources in different places. And this goes with the subjective too, but especially when you're doing like an objective fact, when somebody tells you something, says, the doctor comes in and says, this drug will stop this, will stop uh, your or lower your blood pressure. Will definitely lower your blood pressure. Take it. And now you got to start looking and say, okay, well, what else will it do? It'll stop. It's all of a sudden when you're and you're manipulating your bodily functions, there's got to be, it has to affect in certain ways. So there's obviously, you have to look at it and evaluate. Yes, it maybe that's the thing. It inhibits a certain hormone that it allows the blood release, it lets the blood pressure settle in. I'm not going to do a medical discussion tonight, but anyway, but just to get you in that expert opinion, don't do whatever somebody tells you. That's the next one. Now the next one is a report. Now you want to be verified. So the doctor is verifying that drug works for that, because he's a doctor, he's an expert, he knows about this stuff and tell you. The next thing is there's not verified, but reported. So let's say an event happened. Let's say there was a protest somewhere, and there was maybe one of the people from one TV station was at the protest. He reported in to his boss or her boss about what happened at the protest, and then it goes up the chain, and all of a sudden somebody writes it out. Now you've got a chain, and then that reliable sources reports it. Now you might get a direct from a reporter and that's, like I said, that's more of a gets to be personal. If you see somebody that is actually at an event, at a protest, they're reporting from the protest. Now all of a sudden, you could set up anything, for a camera shoot, and there's been all kinds of weird stuff. So you always have to take everything with a grain of salt. But just in general, these are reports. Okay, they're on the lower end of the totem pole as far as verifiable facts. Look at different sources. That never follow. Just my opinion. Okay, never follow one source. If you're a Fox News person, whatever, and you go and you watch it all the time, of course you're watching it. It's entertainment. It's news. They're using news and they're putting spins on whatever the news is, and they're determining what the news is. There's a lot more important things in the world than the stuff that goes on any of those mainstream stations. So it doesn't matter if it's if NBC, ABC, CBS, or CNN, or all those. They all determine and says what is the news that we want to present, and we're going to leave everything else off. If it doesn't help our advertisers, if it isn't in if it kind of goes against our narrative that we're trying to establish here as a news outlet and who we support, within the government and all that. So it gets to be, there's always some kind of an influence, whether it be advertisers, government, whatever, just each other in that echo chamber that is the news shows, and not even the news shows, the entertainment shows, the late night entertainment comedians get on, and they have their views, and they'll report some news. And I get my news from entertainers too on YouTube. It's not the only place I get it, but it's like to get their take on it, because sometimes a little twist, a little irony kind of, and this is something with artists, is what we do is in order to get people to understand, a certain truth that we believe is important for people to know, we find a twist, we find a way of kind of creatively manipulating the language and the words to put that idea out. With visual artists, it's a way of kind of painting a color, or if it's a photograph, and certain moments in time that describe a whole, like they said, one picture is worth 1,000 words. And many times. So, you find that as an artist, you find ways to represent the truth, and that would be one of the ways that that we're talking about objective truths. When we are artists, we're more into the subjective truths, and I'll go into that in just a little bit. But so objective truths, quantitative or directly observational. So quantitative meaning I have 5 fingers that I'm putting up right now. You can count them. Quantitative, okay? All right. Okay. I'm wearing glasses. I'm not wearing glasses. I just took them off. These are observational, quantitative things that you do. Okay, so that's most of your objective truth is in the realm. Inevitably achieved through consensus. So when you have a consensus of thought, people everywhere, no one dissents against certain things. In the artist realm and in the world in general, most people know this, is that blue and yellow, if you mix those 2 colors together, they equal green. Okay, so if you're able to, so you put that, you take paint, blue paint, yellow paint, put it together, it's going to be some shade of green depending on how much blue you use, how much yellow, what kind of blue, that kind of thing. So that's a consensus within at least the realm of people who know. I'm sure there's tons of people that don't know that. It's primary color, basic stuff that you learn in basic science or art, in lots of different, subjects. So that one. Another one is that seems super obvious is water is wet. Water is wet. Now this goes in a little bit into the thing is like water is necessarily not always wet when it's in its state. So water frozen, we refer to as ice. And if it's completely frozen, not if it's thawing or whatever, it gets wet on the outside, you can say, well, it's still wet. No, if it's completely frozen, it's not. It's in a solid state. It's solid. It's not wet. It's not watery. Okay. At a certain temperature, high temperature, it vaporizes, and it's, you can say, well, steam, you get wet if you're in humidity and that. So there's those factors as well, is that water is not always. So you've got it. You understand the concepts of ice and steam and water. Okay. Now water, H2, it might be more effective to say H2O. Okay. If we were to say H2O is wet, we would say, wait. It's not always wet. Right. Water we think of as being that wet state of H2O. So, these are little things. And this is a simple, you might say, well, okay, that's all obvious and all that stuff like that. But a lot of times you'll confront this. And as artists, we confront the situation, things, and we see things, and we're looking at different ways to portray them. And something seems so obvious that we're looking for a way to change it up just a little bit to make it still say that, understand what that true thing that people are going to obviously have a consensus and understand what that means, but manipulate it. And then we get into that, as we go. There's going to be lots of different discussions that we can have that relate a lot to that kind of approach to creativity. So yeah, those concepts. Moving into subjective truth, I put the words on the side of objective truth. I put science. Scientists like to think that they have this objective truth, like we talked about the doctor earlier. They have this objective truth, but the true definition. Let's see what Lady Google has as a definition. What is the definition of science?
Here's the definition of science: the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained.
Okay. so science is not one person pontificating, and pontification is another a subjective fact that you might say that people accept as an objective fact. So you have to kind of look at it from that standpoint as well. But the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, observation, experimentation, and testing of theories. So yeah, the first thing that I put was theory. Okay, so subjective truth is sought through theory, logic, and supposition. Supposition. You postulate. Okay, you come up with an idea that, well, this could be. You have to start with that little grain of an idea, and then develop into a theory and move ahead. Just like in art, you might have you start with just a little grain, an idea of it. Okay. And now you have to kind of say, okay, how am I going to build around that? How am I going to build to make that? Because our arts are little examples of truth. I mean, that's, that's kind of obscure or a little weird kind of, the truth. It's all right. But we're seeking a certain truth in creativity and doing that. And like I also mentioned in the description, uh, some sort of real fiction, real, to make fiction seem real. And there's a lot of that going on in the news, just as an aside, that. So I mean, there's lots of people that are very creative writers, that are editors of news pieces and articles that you're reading, that are accepting certain things as truth when it's just very subjective. Might be a theory, might just be some kind of supposition or some postulate. So yeah, it gets to be where you have to start looking at these levels and subjective truth. Examples of subjective truth. I'll start with that. I'll go right into that. Okay, I came up with this one, which is historical. If you know anything about American history, Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold. Okay, the statement, Benedict Arnold was a traitor. Okay, most people there be this close to almost like if you're a very a patriotic American person, you'd understand and you'd believe the history 100%, that he did everything that a traitor does. Okay, so you can look at that, and then you can look at it from another side and say, well, at the time there was no alliance that he needed to have. He worked. Did he work both sides? Was he a double agent? There's like the little things that was he more loyal to the Tories and the the British, to the king and stuff like that. And he's not a traitor to the king. He's not a traitor to everybody. It's like sometimes somebody's a traitor. He's only a traitor to you, or he or she can be kind of, oh yeah, I thought I could trust you. I thought it was that kind of thing. So, but they might be working in the best interest of somebody else too. So that statement is, and even from our perspective, even from the Patriot perspective, do we really know 100% about what went on back then and whatever? We weren't there. We go back to the objective truths of supporting real facts, personally verifiable, verified by a trusted source. I mean, I didn't know anybody back then. My great grandparents and great grandparents were from Poland, and probably not even Poland, because Poland wasn't Poland at the time. And the borders changed, and I know that I'm ethnically that, so I can trace back to that. But I mean, it had nothing to do with that. So we take a lot of things, subjective truths, from the ideas that were developed back then and in history. Now I always say that history matters. We need to learn history, but never learn history from one source. Get different viewpoints. Learn history from. It's like the history of the world. Don't learn it from the American viewpoint. Learn it from the Chinese viewpoint, the African viewpoint, the Scandinavian viewpoint, the Italian, whatever. I mean, there's kind of take a look around. I mean, you can't delve into everybody's whatever, unless you wanted, if you're a real history buff. But understand when history kind of tells you something, to kind of, take it into account and say, yeah, that's something. I'm going to verify that. I'm going to check on other sources. So when you're determining a fact because of historically what had happened, always, look into, just don't say, oh yeah, that's this guy said, unless it's that the journalist, and maybe a Cy Hirsch, or whatever. Daniel Ellsberg just passed away. What a loss. And I mean, he had a long life, but man, he went through a lot, and he risked a lot for truth and reporting facts. Okay, facts that we were not allowed to know. Okay, you're not allowed to know that. So lots of times when things are facts, you'll find that the powers that be are not going to want those facts known. So not all facts. So as you see the thumbnail, that situation, that's there's a journalist that's being held for presenting facts. Whether you like those facts, whether you think whatever it is, I mean, whatever we're going to go into journalism specifically down the line. But first, in order to do that, I think you have to understand the objectives of facts in representing truth, and that general concept of truth. So next comment I had here. Okay, so subjective truth is often, and I've alluded to it, often sought through creative means. So even if you're a journalist and you're trying to, you've got a supposition, you got an idea, you got a story you're going towards. All right, you have to be a little bit creative in the way you're going to work this. Now, how am I going to work this? How am I going to get into this situation and that, and take it into the art world. You're writing a script, and you have to draw in from history and your own personal experience, and that, and then put it all together and have it be a creative sequence of events that maybe you're doing. If you're doing something that's like kind of chronological, then you have to have certain things, and you understand the elements of playwriting, and in general, you have your turning point and your climax and all that kind of thing, that general thing. I mean, not all theater has to be in that structure, but you want to understand that structure, because that's the way audiences participate more in it. And so you want to read, and you're reaching, lots of times you're kind of like giving an opinion. The piece that you have, whether it be theater, a painting, sculpture, whatever it is, you're going to have that end is to, there's some truth that I want to support through all this. There's going to be a moral to the story. There's going to be a feeling that I want people to get. I want people to be angry because they're seeing some violence on a painting. And who's causing that? Makes you think, who's causing it? Why is it? What, maybe what you can see through it to say, okay, if that needs to stop, and then maybe gets people, participating in a movement to it. So, how many artists have been leaders of movements or participants? I say more participants as much as leaders. You lead in the art field, and you can, as far as politics and all that, but politics is one thing, social movements is another. You work from like we talk about the grassroots. We are a grassroots community, large grassroots community of artists, and we're not politically. We might have policy, but we belong to social movements. And I'm an anti-war advocate, strong anti-war advocate. I belong to that community, and I'm an artist. There are artists that are strong into that as well, and we try to bind together on certain events and things. I want to do more of that in my life too. But you might have a cause, whatever your cause is. Artists get involved in the cause as well. So so often we're seeking that subjective truth, meaning this is what I want to say. I mean, poverty is taking over our inner cities. Poverty is destroying our inner cities. Or is it violence is destroying our inner cities? Or what it, I mean, it's the language and the focus. Now, you could say, well, poverty is the root cause. Violence is a byproduct of that. So you look at it and you say, no, they're violent first, and because they're violent, they're impoverished because however there's lots of different ways to subjectively kind of look at it and want to pursue that truth. Um, so yeah, I mean we could delve into so many political and social issues on that, but it's all you have to go through the process. You do have to. Everybody goes through the process, and I think the more you understand the process that individuals take, this, like I said, this is not a psychology lesson. This is this is not an art lesson even, but this is we're talking about developing our ability to be better artists and to bind together as artists to both create and to move and shape culture. So that's the direction that I'm trying to lead us in. And from my little corner of the world here in Houston, it's hot as hell. I had to turn the air conditioner off because because it's so I had it cranking. But so I'm not going to make this too long today. But anyway, but I'm all right. Okay, next comment has also depends strongly on definition. I was talking about definitions and inevitably language and culture. So in order for us to have real discussions on subjective truth, we have to understand what the meanings of certain words mean different things, even in the same language. Different dialects and some words exist in certain dialects and in certain cultural. Let's say the English language, or so many different parts of the world that speak the English language. That you'll have words that mean the same. Like I remember, they like just simply just off the top of my head, when they say chips in England, just say England. I mean, this is very related. U.S. England, you would think would have the same, but when you say in food, the chips, okay. When America, we think chips, we're thinking, okay, well, there's tortilla chips, there's potato chips, there's this kind of chip. No. Those in England are known as crisps, that kind of a thing. So crispy kind of thing. You know what I mean? And then, and chips is like we call fries. French fries. We call them French fries. Back in the day, it was freedom fries, right? When everybody was against the French for being against war. So anyway, so then history matters. Anyway, so it's, what I mean. You get the gist. There's different, so when we're speaking, we understand the language that we're using. That's important. It's important for people to understand the language. That's why a lot of times as an artist, as a songwriter, I'm using language that I think everybody can understand. I don't want to get. I'll use words that maybe are beyond typical bar language, as they say in country music. You're just like you're talking to somebody in a bar. I'll be a little more poetic about it. Depending on the song. So you get the right situation and the message that you want to put out. So, but I won't go too deep into that. And in the end, it's determined by belief systems. So your subjective truth, whatever it is. I alluded to religious dogma, being dogmatic, pontificating, as they call it. That comes from the term, pontiff is the pope. So when you pontificate, okay, this is the truth. This is, God told me the truth. Okay, hey, that's what you believe. That's what you believe. It's in your belief system. All right. You have rationalized. So you go back to the beginning. It was like there's a certain logic that you put together and say, well, somebody, and just the presence of, like the ultimate truth is there a God? Or the question, is there a God? And there is a logical way to discuss that and to represent ideas, to say, yeah, there has to be someone who started it all, who did, and there's some kind of a design form to the universe and had to be some kind of an intelligent situation. So that, whether I believe this or not, that's an argument that can be made. And if you don't believe in that argument or don't have that belief system, I think it's still important to know when you are arguing or having a discussion regarding that, and you want to get to the truth. You want to understand, well, what is the truth about that? So, and that's what I mean. Since the beginning of the world, there's always been somebody looked up and said there has to be a bigger being, a more encompassing, whether you put it personified or not, a person or some kind of a god, some kind of an animal, whatever it is, it's that is in control and or made us or all that. So I mean, these are within belief systems. There's obviously all kinds of belief systems, whatever it is. I mean, wherever it grows from small subculture, counterculture, subculture beliefs that come up. There's that big term that it came out. The CIA came out and started calling people conspiracy theorists when they started accusing the CIA of spying on people, NSA and all that. We were the conspiracy theorists for believing what we believed was true. And it became more of an objective truth when actual documentation and certain things came out, the top secret stuff that they were trying to hold. Remember, there's lots of times you want to hold the truth away because it might implicate the person who is holding the truth away. All right. So that this concept of classified material in government, it's like in the censorship and all this, it's not because things are not facts, truth, wrong. It doesn't, they might be telling you the wrong facts and truth, but the main thing is to keep the status quo and to keep that status quo going. So it protects people that are either not following the law or hurting other people with their actions. That happens, I would say, a lot. And we're seeing it, and it's been coming out, and very heroic people, whether they be journalists, politicians, and not a whole lot of politicians, especially not in America, but there are people that do throughout the world, and speak truth, and they have the they have the documents, they have the history to back it up. So a lot of what you hear is not, the history does not back it up. So these are things that you have to kind of look at different sources. Never going to tell you exactly what to believe. I'm going to tell you maybe sometimes what I think, but I'll also remind you, say, this is my opinion. Okay, this is where I'm coming from, and you can take it or leave it. Now, within the world of art, these are things that kind of get left behind when we're developing as artists. I think there needs to be more emphasis on our interjection into our cultures and into the human condition and the mind, and be able to kind of like that. And that helps us when we do that. That helps us to create those scenarios, those stories, build those stories, or those interesting little twists and turns. And you could, like I got about 2 or 3 songs where I actually have a truth that I'm developing, or a certain subjective truth that I'm trying to, I don't say push, but I kind of represent. And I'll use like a metaphorical situation. I'll, make it seem like really crazy kind of stuff going on, but it holds the attention. That story will hold the attention to bring that truth forward. And a lot of folk music is like that. And also, I mean, every genre has those beautiful songs or those poignant songs in songs, and in theater as well. When any kind of literary, whether you're a novel writer, or, even nonfiction and stuff like that, there's ways to write, to bring out and to make people understand. So I won't go too deeply into that. And in general, that subjective truth that is often dogmatic, is often determined by your belief system. It's about determining right and wrong. Right? What is right? What is wrong? Don't do what is wrong. That's what I'm telling you. Do what is right. Now, what is wrong and what is right? Well, I have the truth because I know, because I'm my belief system is the correct. So, you get to be dogmatic, and you get to be, it's the left versus right, and it's like this, and it's always the like I said, the dichotomies that are way separated. The good guys and the bad guys, the white hats and the black hats, and uh, all the concepts. There's, I always say there's always more than two sides to any story. So don't just think, well, I'm going to look at the other side. There are other viewpoints besides just the other side. Like we talk about the mainstream media. Everybody always talks about, well, Fox is the kind of like right wing, and MSNBC is left wing. So I'm going to watch those two, and I think I'm going to get the whole picture. You're getting very little of the picture, because both of those networks are influenced heavily by the people that own those companies, and especially by the people who fund those networks, the advertisers and the people that donate. And we've talked about it before. There's a lot of influence as to what story you're going to get. In fact, just the story you're going to get. There's going to be stories that are going to be completely buried because it's going to affect the advertisers. It's going to affect their bottom line. If all of a sudden, story comes out about a bad drug and that, and there's some that you have to report, then they understand, that, okay, you got to report that. It's not that ain't going to get covered up. But some side effects, different things are happening. Whatever it is with that, they kept pushing OxyContin. They kept telling it was safe. They were given, and like I said, this isn't political. This is stuff that you can look up. Please look it up. About what happened with when that first came out, OxyContin, and how people started getting hooked on it. But it came out. It's not a narcotic. It's not. You can't get hooked on this stuff. And they got people continuously hooked, dying, and it was tragic. And there's a lot of tragedy that comes from people covering up the truth. So we want to get to that point. And as artists, we're part of it. We want to help to bring truth to the forefront, I believe. So, all right. Moving on here, just tangible versus intangible. So that's another dichotomy we can look at between objective and subjective truth. There's tangible truths that we and those are ones that we can use to make arguments for the intangible, because the intangible, there's it's going to boil down to an opinion or theory, and when we get to the point of consensus, then maybe as a culture we can say this is true. That it might not be personally verifiable. It might be a little bit, not as objectively, definable, type of a thing, but this is a basic truth. Benedict Arnold was a traitor. Okay. So, okay. All right. Most people that went through history classes, in grade school, and you probably heard it first there. And nowadays, I don't know what they teach in grade school. So, but that's when I first heard it, the Benedict Arnold. There was George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and there was Benedict Arnold. And I'm not promoting the guy. No, I'm just saying this is a subjective truth that has been passed down through the years in history books and everything. Like down, this is true, And as you get into upper level history, you'll learn a little bit more about the facts of it all. And it's not, there's a grayer area just because of what, the lay of the land back then. So not to promote the guy, but anyway, but I'll just use that as a subjective truth. So you got that tangible versus intangible. Questions. Okay. Here is it an artist's duty to seek truth? Is it an artist's duty? Duty. How do you spell it? Duty? With my dialect. It's an artist's duty to seek truth. Something to think about. Obviously, I threw that out there. I lean towards saying, yeah, I think if you're going to call yourself an artist, you're gonna be doing things that are going to somehow affect people in a way. It might be a negative way to achieve maybe a positive outcome. You might make somebody angry. Anger is not a positive thing. You don't want to stay angry, but you want to take that energy with the anger you built maybe and start thinking. Now you say, okay, well now how am I going to get rid of that anger, and how are we going to address the thing that I'm angry about? So as artists, we do that. So is it a duty to seek the truth? Is it also is it an artist's duty to reflect truth? That's another way to look at it too, to bring out, to say, okay, well, I'm going to represent that. And just in general, I mean, the truth of nature. I mean, we can get a little more obscure into what truth is. I mean, uh, even if you're like going back to painting that mountain, okay, and finding the truth in that painting, to find the beauty and the soul and the grandeur and if somebody religious looks at it and says, well, that's a representation that has this is a representation of God's work. All right, so I mean, it inspires them to say there has to be a God, there has to be this and so I mean, there's ways to look. So when people are looking at things like that, they're finding truth in inanimate objects and just uh, paintings of people together doing certain activities and that refer to situations and conflict and that. So I mean, whatever it is, I mean, you want to reflect some sort of truth as well, in my opinion. Uh, okay, then the one I brought up earlier is that real fiction. Is it the artist's duty to seek real fiction? So, and I think of real fiction as being um, uh, a story that might not be true, that you make people believe that it is a true story, that it is that you're able to create that real fiction. I mean, that's like they said, the people in the news do it all the time. They create real fiction. They're telling you stuff that ain't true. Okay, so whether you want to believe that, we have that suspension of belief in theater. So it's kind of like a suspension of disbelief is the concept. Whereas that's an audience. An audience goes in, sits and watches a theater production. That those people are not. Let's say you're watching the Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. You're not sitting in the Deep South, and you're not like a fly on the wall of you understand that this is a situation that is set up and these are actors and all that. But you enter the studio and you accept this situation, this suspension. You suspend your disbelief, and you're going to take in this. And if the play is well done, and you'll get the messages, and you'll get the entertainment from it, and the whatever the irony that evolves around it, and the language and all, whatever, you take it all in, and you believe that these characters are actually real people. All right, they're not, but you're suspending just for that 2 hours or whatever it is. You're suspending your disbelief, and you're going to go in and you're going to accept these people as real. You want to live those characters. You want to deepen into the mindsets of these characters. So that's one way to look at it, to seek that real fiction. Like I said, it's easy to twist that and to use that to propagandize and create scenarios that you need to hide the real truths that we need. So that's all part of art as well. I mean, there's been no nefarious artists too. They use their art for for nefarious purpose, counterfeiters and stuff. And like I said, that's more of a craft. You can go to my last video and find all that stuff. So anyway, it's it's like starting again with what James Earl Jones says again: language bonds culture. Um, so we have to understand. We have to be able to, in this presentation, I speak English. I, have background in language enough to understand the value of language to our culture, that it bonds the culture. And I would like to be able to bond with people that, from other cultures that I don't speak their language as well. And by understanding our own and understanding our culture and how close it is, then you understand how important language is to their culture. It's very xenophobic. It's easy to become xenophobic, to think that you are your culture is the superior culture because these people can't achieve this. But then you don't look on the other side and say, well, we haven't achieved that. We're a bunch of young punks here compared to like the Chinese culture, an Indian culture, or whatever. These long-standing cultures. I mean, we're a mixed bag here, and that's not to put us down, but if there is any inkling in somebody's brain that we're better than anybody else because they speak a different language, because they have a different culture, in any respect, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, as well as obviously the other culture that you're insulting. So seeking truth within yourself first, and then with those around you. So that's all I've kind of finished today. And if anybody has comments, please list them down. I will read comments if there are any. Again, just getting this thing going. This is something, and as you see, it's going to be different topics that involve, but kind of centered around art, centered around culture. We're going to move and just talk about cultural things. And but I always kind of go back to related, because I consider myself an artist, and I have a lot of friends that are artists, and I respect artists, but I also know a lot of people that want to be artists, or people that kind of represent themselves as artists. And maybe, in my opinion, we need to discuss these things to improve, to move to the next levels of being, to understand what our duties are as artists. So anyway, next Sunday I'll be back on. So hopefully I'll get my wheels going again, and I'll be able to make all my gigs. And don't forget to go check my other channel out, Mark Zeus Music. I'll probably be posting another video. There's some music videos. There's a playlist of music videos there too. The last stuff that I posted was the road trip, the 30 days on the road. Tons of it was a real project putting that thing together. So it's interesting little tidbits from the road. Nothing real crazy. A few little crazy things, but if you're interested, look at one of those sometime and just relax. It doesn't move. Sometimes it doesn't move very fast, and sometimes it moves very, very fast. So check out those if you can. Or and I got music videos, and my general website is Mark Zeus, MarkZeus.com, and that lists my performance list. On this show I don't really plug it a whole lot, but yeah, if you want to go check that out, you're welcome to as well. All right, so seek the truth, and we'll see you next Sunday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.